Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ruby, this is Ruby Red, and today we are bringing something back. When I first started my channel, I used to do wrap-ups in this way. I would just do 5 books at a time, talk about them, and then the next time I had finished 5 books, I would post another finished 5. And this did not last very long because I was reading too much, and I didn't like making these videos because I don't think I was very comfortable or confident. So there was so much that I had to cut out of the video that they were a pain for me to edit. They were painful to put together. So I would put them off and then I would have read too many books. It was a mess. So I stopped doing those, but then I really liked doing my reading journal wrap-ups, but I can't really handle that right now. So I wanted to do something else to just give me space to talk about every single book that I read this year. And that's this, finished 5, season 2. Behold, the first 5 books that I read this year. Okay, I have finished a book. My first book of the year, and it's kind of embarrassing. No, it's not embarrassing. It's just like, you know, you maybe want your first book of the year to really be something that's gonna set the tone. But I hope that this is not setting the tone. I finished The Idea of You by Robinne Lee. This is a book I was reading for my book club. We had been reading a lot of nonfiction and literary kind of stuff, and like turnout was like not great. So we decided to like shift and read something smooth brain, no thinky. And boy, was this smooth brain. Absolutely smooth. Let me pitch this book to you. It's about Celine. She is a 39-year-old divorcee. She has a 12-year-old daughter, Isabel. And in the very beginning of this book, she gets whatever, there's a parenting shuffle, and then she ends up being the one who takes Isabel and her 2 friends to see their favorite boy band play in Vegas. They live in LA. And they have like meet and greet passes. It's a whole thing. It was a really exciting thing for the girls, fangirls, for reals, to go see this band. And Celine is going along to, you know, the show and the meet and greet, whatever. She's their chaperone. And so she meets the band. And one of the band guys, Harry Styles, sorry, Hayes, they have like kind of a moment. He's sort of like the creative force behind the band. He's like the main guy a little bit. Anyway, yeah, they have a moment and they start dating and like having sex everywhere. Not to put too much out there, but yeah, they enter into a relationship that is obviously complex because of her daughter being a fangirl for his band, and him specifically even, and also he is extremely famous. But you know, he's doing all these world tours, and she owns a gallery in LA, so she's like traveling to art events and to meet artists all over, so they kind of like coordinate their jet setting to hook up. And wow. I gave it 3 stars. And like literary merit, very low. So like technically, is this a good book? Like, no. But did I have a hoot and a half reading it? Yes, I did. I had a great time. Actually the first, 60 to 70 pages, I was not that into it. I felt like the way that the 2 of them were interacting and like meeting felt very like so fake. I don't know. Their interactions were so weird to me. But then I don't know if I got used to it or if it just became more believable. But like still some of the things that he would say, oh my God. Anyway, yeah, I had so much fun. It was a riot. And I'm glad we read it, and it's being adapted into a movie pretty soon, I think, with Anne Hathaway as the lead. I don't know who's playing Harry Styles. I mean, Hayes. Yeah, wow, so fun. I mean, like, there's stuff in there, you know, that is worth discussing, like ageism, sexism, right? Like, you know, once you hit 30 as a woman in Hollywood, like, you're invisible, and fandoms, fan culture, like, that is definitely something that could be discussed. Celine, her gallery, you know, they're very much about supporting like women and like artists of color in their gallery. And there's some discussion about like what is art, and you know, is a poppy boy band not art? And so there was stuff in there that could have been like a whole thing and could definitely bring up some discussions. I'm sure we'll be discussing all of those things in my book club, but like the book makes very little headway in those topics, I think. And it's also just like hard to really delve deep into like ageism when you're so horny, because this book was extremely horny. But I think, here's what I think. I think that if Julia May Jonas, who wrote Vladimir, wrote this book, it would be stupendous. It would be a different book, you know, but I think that if she took this situation of like 39-year-old divorcee hooking up with her teenage daughter's boy band pop idol, like, I think that would be amazing. I think she would do such a good job, like digging into like how many ways it goes wrong. I think she would do amazing. And I think that would be a better story as far as digging into some of those themes. But this was a really fun book. If you, I don't know, if you're a One Direction girly, maybe you're like on the older end of like their fan spectrum, is that a thing? Whatever. You should read this because it was kind of fun. It was really fun. But like, just know that this is not a literary masterpiece, okay? We're just here for a good time. Also, the author, not only did she go to Yale and Columbia Law School, but she was in Hitch and 7 Pounds with Will Smith, and she was also in 50 Shades Darker and 50 Shades Freed. Robin? What? Anyway, that's the first book I read this year. If I could have chosen something else, I would have, but I needed to read this for my book club. So we were meeting pretty early in the month. So yeah, had to get that done, and what a hoot, but only 3 stars because, yeah. I finished another book, and I read this book for a very specific reason, and that reason is a vlog, and the vlog is going to be linked below, where I talk at length about Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. But I will talk at a shorter length about it right now. It is a little bit of a Jane Austen-esque, in my opinion, tale. I don't think it's really a romance, which it has been kind of talked about as, but I agree with Amy that it's not. Anyway, it's about the super, super rich families in China and how they how they react to outsiders, what kind of infighting they have. It's a very funny, very fun kind of story specifically about Nick and Rachel, but then also about Astrid, Nick's cousin. And she is super, super rich, and she has a husband who does not come from money. And then Nick comes from this super, super rich background, and Rachel is an Chinese-American woman, his girlfriend, and he brings her to meet his family, and she has no idea that they're super, super rich. She comes from like, I don't know, low to medium income background, so she's like not prepared at all for the situation, and they are like obscenely rich, you know. So that was all very fun and funny, and also it was upsetting because I feel like that was a crazy thing for him to do and not tell her. Oh my god. And so it's about their relationship and how everyone is sort of reacting to it and perceiving it, and the shenanigans. And it was very fun little commentary on that kind of class system. It did have a lot of similarities to some of Jane Austen's books, that it also deals so strongly with class and inheritance and that kind of thing. So yeah, that was the second book that I read. Really liked it, and if you want to know more, you should watch the vlog because I had a lot of fun making it. I'll be back once I finish something else. I'm back. because I finished another book. I finished Under the Banner of Heaven, A Story of Violent Faith by Jon Krakauer. I'm just, I'm torn about how to rate it. So I guess let me first say what it's about and then my feelings. And then maybe by that point I will have come to an understanding with myself about my rating. All right, this book is a true crime novel in one way, in that it is telling the true story of a crime, a murder that was committed in the 80s in Utah. But that murder was religiously motivated or like inspired. And so he also really explores the religion, Mormonism, the Mormon religion, and the history of, and then all of the different like fundamentalist groups that have sprung up. And also he tries to explain like why fundamentalist groups, why there's so many of them, and what their thing is, and various different like kinds of extremism within this religion, and how that led to this murder and some other crimes as well. Loads of other crimes, to be honest. So it's a true crime novel, but it also is like a history of Mormon persecution and also crimes. So that was really interesting because I knew very, very little about the Mormon faith and the history. So that was very interesting to me. And the way that he wrote, like, not present day, but the story of the Lafferty brothers who committed this murder against their sister-in-law. They murdered their sister-in-law and their niece. And so we're learning their story of how they, you know, grew up, what kind of Mormon family they were part of, and what kind of Mormon groups they, you know, fell in with, and how their faith progressed into something that would make them commit a murder. I don't mean that. And those chapters exploring that more, you know, modern day Lafferty situation we were cutting back and forth between that and like the founding of the religion, and some of the first leaders and prophets and all that. And that back and forth was actually so fantastic. Like I feel like I've read a lot of books that contain that recently, and I have not always been wowed. But in this case, I was wowed. Jon Krakauer knocked that out of the park again. And he really knows how to write a book, is what I'm thinking. Because yeah, this was a spectacular book. I think there was some pushback from the Mormons against this book when it was first published in 2003. And he kind of rebuts that in the back of the book. He's like, here's the 5-page criticism that I received from the leader of the LDS. And here's what I have to say about it, which I thought was a little bit funny. But also, you know, I do think with a work like this, it's important that you are, I think it's important to honestly represent what you can. And the cool thing about Mormonism is that there's so much recorded about it because it was only founded like less than 200 years ago, I think. So everything was like written down and preserved. So you can really dig deep into some of the history of it, which he did, which was really interesting. And it was by no means condemning Mormons. It was really just a very interested look at the kind of attitudes and beliefs that could lead to somebody who could then think that God really needed for him to kill his sister-in-law. I mean, yeah, that was a really, really tragic, horrible crime. And I think it's respectfully documented throughout this book. And yeah, I just loved it. But I'm like, not sure if it should be a 4 or 5 star. I think I'm leaning 4 because I don't feel that I'm obsessed with this book. Whereas Into Thin Air, I was obsessed with that book and that was 5 star. So I'm kind of just comparing this book to one of his other books in my rating. But like when I compare it to other books, no, it's a 4 star. I don't know why I'm making this so complicated. 4 stars. Thanks, John. Love this book. Anyway, that was the 3rd book that I read this year. And so I'll be back when I've read something else. I just finished another book. I finished my 4th book of the year. It was Gathering Moss by Robinne Lee Kimmerer. Now, what a good book. Robin is the author of one of my favorite books, Braiding Sweetgrass. She is an environmental biologist, ecologist, bryologist. That's a moss scientist. And a poet, frankly. And this book is just about moss. And, you know, there was a lot in here about different kinds of moss, how moss interacts with this environment, with other moss, different reproductive strategies, environmental niche, all of that, which was very interesting. But it's more of a collection of essays than anything, part memoir, I suppose. And in every one, sure, you're reading about moss, but there's always something else about mosses and about life and the world that Robin is saying, and I love that style, and I love what she has to say. She talks about her own experiences. She talks about the things that we can and can't know from experiments, and you know, what you just have to know from knowing. She talks a lot about Indigenous ways of knowing. That's a huge part of her worldview, her personal history, her culture, all of that, and that comes through in this beautifully. Yeah, I thought that this was an excellent work. It's her first book, and it was phenomenal. It was, yeah, she's just a poet. What can I say? I'm never gonna look at moss the same again. This was a delightful little treat. Thank you so much, Aubrey, for giving me this book for my birthday. I loved it. And this woman is just my, like, favorite. Oh my God. Yeah, mosses have way more metaphorical capabilities than you might have expected, is what I've learned, among other things. Okay, I gotta go. I'll be back once I've read one more book. Okay, the fifth and final book of this video is How to Read Now by Elaine Castillo. This is a nonfiction book. I listened to the audiobook and it was excellent. I highly recommend the audiobook. And I've been trying to figure out really what I want to say about this book, because I feel like there's like almost too much that I want to say, but I really enjoyed it. Let's start there. And I think that everyone should read it. This is a nonfiction book, like I said, How to Read Now, in which it's a series of essays about how to read, but not how to read like books exclusively, but how to read context and other texts in like a media criticism kind of way, where like a film and a TV show and a tweet and all of that is a text, and this is how you read them. And it was really interesting, really timely, and she just really dug into a lot of the ways that people are avoiding reading, I think, is one of the main things that I got out of it. Anyway, I really liked this book. I hope that you read it and learn to think a little bit more critically about everything that you read, everything that you read. Okay. So those are the first 5 books that I read this year, books 1 through 5. I'm feeling good. A bunch of 4 stars, really good books, but we're hoping for even more good books in the future. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these or if you're going to, and how your reading is going at the start of this year. I hope that we can enjoy this new and improved format together. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss episode 2 when I've read 5 more books. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.